Hey folks, I'm Fundy.
And I'm Austin.
And welcome back to
The
Dyson
Dyson
Quill,
Quill,
the web series where we give you, the viewers, our views, discussions, and opinions on everything role-playing.
Right. And today we'll be covering the Dungeons & Dragons 3.5 edition or 3rd edition. They're both basically the same character sheet. And we have one right here that we'll be going off of, as well as I'll be putting one up on the screen so you can follow us along. Alright, so first things first. Top left-hand corner of your sheet will be a blanks, or several blanks, for the physical description of your character, starting with your character name. And that's just whatever you choose to name your character. That completely is up to you. So, Adonis Cadbury. Cadmus. Sorry, this is not our first time doing this. Next would be your player name, and that's just your human name. So, as a DM, I like to keep all the character sheets in one place, so you don't forget to bring it over. And putting your name on your character sheet, similar to putting your name on your homework in school, lets me know whose character is who.
Because you always got that one guy. Everybody's ready, and you got that one guy who shows up and he's like, I forgot my backpack. I don't have my character. You guys got dice I can borrow.
Right.
No, you're going to be a dang farmer now, and your weapon's a pitchfork.
Right, and you know, we're all humans, we forget things. It's better just to negate that risk completely. Next one's going to be your class and level, and we'll do a completely separate video series for each individual class, but for this one I'm going to use a rogue, for example. So you put your rogue, and then your level, so for a new character, 1. Race, we'll also be covering that in another series of videos, but let's say human, that's where you put it.
Elf, half-elf, dwarf,
Whatever.
what have you.
Alignments, so there are 9 different alignments, and we're not going to go into all of them here, but I'm going to use chaotic good for this example, and that's where you would put that. And that's more for a role-playing aspect. That kind of gives you the guidelines of how your character, not even really guidelines, just more of your personality.
Your general morality.
Right, exactly.
Morality and your ethical code.
Mm-hmm. And as far as role-playing and gameplay goes, as long as you act within your character's alignment, you're good. You know, if you act outside of alignment, then we'll start talking about
Alignment
shifts,
shifts,
penalties,
like that.
yada yada yada. Deity. Unless you're a cleric, paladin, or sometimes monk, deity doesn't really come in a huge play into this. It's more of a role-playing aspect. So deity, there's like 12 different deities. Pelor is the one I like to use. For example, he's the god of the sun. A lot of clerics follow Pelor because they give them access to the good and healing domains, which gives you access to different spell lists. After that is your size. Small and medium is the most common ones, and it's actually the only ones available to players in the 3rd edition handbook. Hello. Age, obviously how old you are. The older your character is, or depending on the race, the closer you are to the end of your life expectancy, you will have penalties and bonuses dependent on that age. And that's more for if you're a seasoned player who wants a good challenge. I may do one.
Right. If you're a grumpy old man for your character, you'll have probably increased wisdom, probably increased intelligence, but you'll have a lack in your strength or your dexterity. Or
right.
Like that.
And it simulates old age. Gender, male, female, or other.
Don't assume.
Don't assume. Height, obviously, how tall you are. Weight, how heavy you are. Eyes, hair, and skin. All these are just physical descriptions of your character. Helps with the role playing and helps your other players in your group picture who you are.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And the next section, which will be fun, these will be your abilities. There are 6 of them.
6 abilities: strength, dexterity, constitution, wisdom, intelligence, and charisma. It's a mouthful. But I'm going to break it down really simple. I read something on the internet that made me chuckle, and it perfectly simulates the basics of your ability scores. And it all surrounds a tomato. All right, so check this out. Strength is how far you can throw a tomato and how hard you can throw a tomato. Dexterity is how accurately you can throw a tomato and how well you can dodge a thrown tomato. Constitution is how much getting hit by a thrown tomato hurts, or how well you can tolerate eating a rotten tomato. Intelligence Intelligence is knowing that a tomato is a fruit. Wisdom is knowing not to put tomatoes in a fruit salad, however. And charisma is the ability to sell a tomato-based fruit salad. There's a lot more that goes into the abilities. We'll get a little bit more into depth on that in a later video. It'll be pretty short and explanatory. The only other thing I want to cover here is your modifiers. Now, think of 10 as the average, and how you come up with what your ability scores are, it's different depending upon DMs. I like to say roll 4d6, 4 6-sided dice, and take the 3 highest, re-roll ones.
That's what I do too.
Right. Some people say roll 3d6, that's it. There's also one that's a standard array, where it's a set of numbers, you just put them where you want. But anyway, so think of 10 as the average. Okay, you have no modifier or penalty to it. 11 and 12, 10 and 11 is 0. 12, 13 is 1. 14, 15 is 2. 16, 17 is 3. 18, 19 is 4. And so on and so forth. Every 2 ability score levels, you get a +1 to your modifier. And that is going to affect and influence almost everything else on this character sheet. And so it's good to know that. Continuing on, we're going to go to your general defenses. And that is, we're going to start with hit points and armor class.
Okay, and hit points is how much health you have. So like in your typical video game, you have health points. It's how much damage you can take before you kick the bucket. Hit points can be found out in the character creation section of the player's handbook. It's class dependent per first level. Basically, with like a rogue, for example, you roll, I believe it's a d6, and you add your Constitution modifier to it, and that's how much HP you have. And each subsequent level, you do the same thing. Something I like to do as a DM for first level characters, because first level is scary, you don't get a whole lot of hit points. I'll just go ahead and max it out for you. So 6 plus Constitution equals your health points. AC is your armor class. It's how hard you are to hit. Is basically what I as a DM have to roll against you to hit you.
I'd say it's how hard you are to damage.
That too. Everyone gets a 10 natural armor class. I shouldn't say natural because it's misleading, but for just having skin. After that will be your armor bonus and your shield bonus. That's based off your equipment and what your character has. So leather armor adds +2, light shield adds +1. And then your dexterity modifier factors into this as well. Basically, your dexterity modifier simulates how adept you are at, possibly avoiding attacks, ducking under a blow, or, raising your shield in time to catch a sword strike. Your size modifier, the larger your character is, so anything past medium, you take a penalty to your dexterity modifier. Which
You take a penalty to your armor class.
You take a penalty to your armor class, which simulates that you're easier to hit because you're bigger. Smaller characters, of course, get a bonus because they're smaller.
Easier to punch an elephant than a mouse.
Right. After that will be your natural armor. So some monsters, like a stone golem, have a natural armor from obviously being made out of stone, and that's where that will go. I believe the Dragonborn race.
4th edition.
That's 4th? Oh, I thought it was 3rd edition. There are certain classes and supplements, which I won't go too much into, that gives you more bonuses. That's outside of the basic player's handbook. And to go into all that would take hours. Deflection. So stuff like shields and certain magical barriers allow you to possibly deflect attacks back at your enemy. And so that's where that would go, depending on what equipment you have. Miscellaneous modifiers, anything that can't be covered by the aforementioned stuff like feats, certain spells, or something happens in the game that gives you a miscellaneous modifier. That's where that would go. Damage reduction is obviously how much damage is reduced by, dependent on your equipment and whatnot. Speed. is how fast your character or how far your character can move. And this is more for an encounter or combat situation. So, for example, Adonis is 45 feet away from a goblin he wants to strike down. Adonis is a medium-sized human fighter. He can move 30 feet. So he would move his full 30 feet in his turn. Next turn, he can close the distance, or the goblin may choose to close the distance and commence combat that way. Non-lethal damage is obviously how much damage you do with a certain weapon type, like most bludgeoning, saps, clubs, and if you're trying to knock out a target, pretty much.
Fist.
Fist. Like now, wounds and current HP, I don't use that blank just because it's really small. I use a separate scratch sheet of paper. And basically, it's how much damage against your HP you've taken. So let's say I have a maximum HP of 20. I take 5 damage. I write 25 down my scratch sheet of paper, and that's how I keep track of my HP. The next session would be your touch, flat-footed, and initiative.
So, touch AC is your AC minus your armor and some other things. And so, like, certain spells, like, let's use a Shocking Grasp. Alright? Now, let's say Austin here has plate mail with chain mail under it, right? He's a good old knight. Alright, but I'm going to use Shocking Grasp on him. So I'm going to reach under his armor and cast that Shocking Grasp. I'm completely negating any of the armor that he has on him, and therefore I'd only be using his touch armor class. And then flat-footed is you being caught unawares, you being on your back or flat on your face, something like that. And again, it has its own rules inside the player's handbook that adjusts your armor class when you're flat-footed. Initiative is who gets to punch who first. Pretty much how it goes is when a fight starts, I see Austin, Austin sees me, we don't like each other very much, we're going to scrap. So, the first thing that happens is we're going to roll initiative, which is off of a d20. Let's say my initiative is 3 and his is 1. So, I rolled a 5, plus 3 is 8.
And I rolled a 16, plus 1 is 17.
He's going to punch me in the face first. Ouch! That's initiative. Continuing on with your saving throws.
So saving throws, and then underneath each one, there's fortitude, reflex, and will. And in parentheses under each one will be the corresponding ability. And as you'll notice on the character sheet, if you're following along, is a lot of these are reverse equation. There'll be the total of such and such equations, and each box is labeled so you know which value to put where. So for fortitude, it's going to be your constitution modifier and your base save, which will be class dependent. There's a whole little chart on it. Class and level dependent, actually. So you take your base save, let's say it's 1, and your ability modifier for fortitude, which would be constitution, so let's say 1. Your total would be 2. Magic modifier, spells, certain items, armor items that are magical could give you more. Depends on what you have and what the DM will allow. Miscellaneous is anything not covered by the aforementioned, anything that can happen in game, or let's say you're an alcoholic, especially with fortitude, you may have a higher for situational
save versus getting sloshed.
Right. And so like that example, fortitude is used to see, let's say you're drinking an alcoholic beverage, it sees how well you handle the alcohol. So let's say I swig a big tankard of ale. I would roll a fortitude check or save to see if it will knock me out cold because I'm a lightweight, or if I'm a seasoned drinker, it probably won't do much to me, and that's what I would roll for that. Reflex save, which would be dependent on the dexterity ability, would be used when, let's say, a new player forgets to check for traps, which happens quite often, and they trigger a trap door. Reflex save would be used to prevent you from falling through. Either you jump out of the way in time, or you grab onto something or someone, and that's what that would be used for. Will save. Will save is used against most magic spells made against you that affects your mind or perception, or even if you're up against a terrifying enemy. Basically, will save sees how steadfast you are in the face of those kinds of adversity. So if I'm up against a Beholder, which is a terrifying creature, I would roll a will save. If I failed, I would run away crying. If I passed, I would stand my ground and fight the thing.
Could also be used to save against certain, persuasions and things like that. You'll notice that under each of these, there is a ability in parentheses, and that's the ability modifier that you add to that defense. So for Fortitude, it's Constitution. You did cover that well. Fine. Well, okay. Well, then I'll sum it up real simple for you guys. Did that hurt?
Ow.
He passed his Fortitude save. Oh wait, you said ow. He didn't pass his Fortitude save. He passed his Passed his reflex save, but failed his dexterity check on that one. Give me $5.
I'm broke. It's paid red.
Okay, give me your guitar.
No.
Okay, he passed his will save. Good on him. That's your saves, pretty much, summed up. We continue on. Number 6, attacks.
Well, base attack bonus will also be class and level dependent, and that will be found in the player's handbook as well. And base attack bonus is added to your attack roll to see if it helps you hit things easier. Grapple. Say you're a monk and you want to put Fundy in a headlock here.
Good luck.
I would roll a grapple against his, and the higher one, let's say I roll higher than him, I successfully put him in a headlock. If he rolls higher, he put me in a headlock.
Or just was able to maneuver out of the way of it. When you enter into grapple with an opponent, you revert to your grapple scores. All right, and it's my grapple versus his grapple, and so on and so on and so forth. Spell resistance is sometimes given to you by magical items, by spells. Sometimes certain monster races or things like that have a spell resistance, and that's your ability to resist magical influence. And that's pretty much it for that section. Going down, we have your attack workspace, right? All that stuff. All right, this is the meat of weapons. All right, so this is your weapon, which damage it does, and other stuff. And he's going to go ahead and get into a little bit more detail into that using frying pan.
Right, so let's say you're using a frying pan because you're a halfling. You would put frying pan into that first blank right underneath attack. Next to it, and in the player's handbook, there's a chart. With every single weapon in the game, this would be an improvised weapon, which I believe will be a 1d4 plus your strength modifier.
Sure.
So, I'm skipping ahead, sorry guys. Attack bonus is where you will put your base attack bonus in addition to the ability to that weapon type. So, melee will be your strength modifier. Range
is dexterity.
So, let's say my attack bonus is 1 because I'm a fighter and my strength modifier is a 2. So my attack bonus whenever I roll to attack would be a 3. So let's say I want to hit Fundy with the pan. I would roll a d20 and add 3 to it. And if it's higher than the difficulty check set by the DM.
My armor class.
Right, sorry. I hit him. And so if I hit him, I would roll the damage. Damage will be, what did I say, a d4 for
D4 plus strength modifier.
And in the book, next to the weapon type, there will be a value for the damage. So let's say it's a d4, right? I would roll my d4, and I would add my strength modifier to that, and that's how much damage I would do. So 3 plus 2 is 5.
Ouch, you fiend.
I conked him real hard in the face. So on the damage, you would put 1d4 plus whatever your strength modifier would be for this. Crit. Crit is how much extra damage you do. Let's say he conks me really, really hard in the noggin.
With the edge of it.
With the very edge of it and cracks my skull open. That was similar to critical. Basically, if the value says something like 19 through 20 / times 2, that would be you would either have to roll a 19 or 20 without any bonuses added. It's called a natural 19 or 20. At which point you can multiply your damage by 2. So take the damage I did earlier, 5 damage. And let's say I rolled a crit on that.
Be 10 damage.
It'd be 10 damage. Now, if you're a hardcore DM or player, in the bucket states you have to roll the crit over 2 more times for a total of 3 crits before you're able to do that. I don't like doing that because I feel like it negates the fun value of it. Right, it just adds more tedious to the game.
Right, and we'll get into house rules and things like that, little adjustments that you as a DM can adjust to make the game flow better.
Right.
We'll cover that in a different video.
Which will actually have a guest speaker for that one.
We will?
Yeah, we will. I'll get with you offline.
Oh, goody!
You'll like it.
All right, so continuing on with the attack workspace.
Range. So for melee weapons, range is like 5 feet. Your arm's reach, pretty much. For ranged weapons, probably from 75 to 100 feet, depending on what you're using. Let's say I'm using a longbow, it's 100 feet. Also, values found in the book as well. Type would be piercing, slashing, or bludgeoning, which is the 3 different weapon types. Piercing is, let's say I have a pencil and I stab him with it.
You either stab them, you cut them, or you beat them.
So this would be a bludgeoning weapon. And after that, notes. Let's say this is an enchanted frying pan of bleeding. If I can't fit all of that in that first space, that's where I would put the spell effects or enchantment effects.
Right.
I've never used the notes portion of it, but you never know.
Also for things like, special things pertaining to your specific weapon.
Right.
If you have a telescope you've banded onto the top of your heavy crossbow, you'd put that in notes. If it gives you a bonus within a certain range. Mm-hmm. Blah, 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 blah.
Right. Ammunition. This is more for ranged weapons like bows. If you have a bow, you're more than likely going to have a quiver. And in 3.5 and 3rd edition, your quiver can hold 20 arrows. Every time you shoot an arrow, let's say Helena, the ranger, shoots an arrow. She then takes her pencil, goes over to the box next to it, and either checks, fills in, or X's out one of the box. And that helps accounts for ammunition usage. And this way, I know it's a lot harder for newer players to keep track of how many arrows they shoot. Just because if the DM does his job right, they'll be so immersed into the world, they forget how many arrows they shoot. But that is something I'm pretty strict on because it throws the balance of the game if you can't.
If you're not strict on it, you can end up, if you're just trucking along, you got an archer with an unlimited amount of arrows, because
Right.
nobody's really paying attention. We're all guilty of it. It happens.
It's like in the movies where they never reload.
Right.
Right. It throws the balance of the game. And that's basically your attack workspace. The next will be skills, and
Skills. This long column here. All right, so we're not going to cover all the skills because that would take way too much time. Time neither we or I'm assuming you, the viewers, have. So,
by the way, if you made it this far, really, really appreciate it.
Thanks, guys. So we're going to start with, again, skills is going to have those reverse equations that we see a lot on this sheet. You're going to have the skill name with a box next to it, okay? Checked boxes are boxes that your character is trained in using. Unchecked means you're untrained in using it. The skill name, the key ability, and that's what you're going to look at for when you put it into the ability modifier slot. Your skill modifier is the total. It is your ability modifier plus how many skill points or ranks you put into it, plus any miscellaneous modifiers your character may have. So let's use the top one for an example. And when it comes to skills, it's usually skill versus skill. All right. Think about skills as you rolling for anything that doesn't have anything to do with hurting somebody. So the top one is appraise, and so I'm going to use my appraise skill against Austin's appraisal skill. Let's say mine is 3 and his is 2.
Right. So, I'm a merchant. I'm going to try to sell you this pencil. This amazing magical pencil can erase your enemies from history and rewrite the pages of history itself. I'll sell this to you for a measly 5 gold.
Neat! But I kind of think it's hogwash. So I'm going to roll my appraise check against his appraisal check. I got a 13 and he got an 8. So I'm going to look at this. I'm going to say, you know what, buddy? I think you're full of malarkey. I'm not going to pay 5 gold for it.
Well, what if I lowered the price to 2 gold?
He got an 8. I got a 16. You know what, buddy? I don't even think this is worth 2 gold. In fact, I think this is just a regular pencil. I'm not going to pay you garbage for it. You know it's garbage. I know it's garbage. I tell you what. How about you just give me the pencil for free? Example completed. That is essentially how skills will work. It's kind of like, the mechanics of it is pretty much the same as attacking, but with skills instead of weapons or things like that. Now, we're going to flip the page over and go over the back.
So, on the back is basically your inventory page. I can cover this big thing in a few minutes. So, at the very top of the sheet will be your campaign name, and that's whatever your DM decides to name the campaign you're playing in. Right now, the one I'm running for my new players is just called The Journey.
For a small town girl living in a lonely world.
I'm going to include that song in this, by the way, somehow. Experience points. Again, I use a scratch sheet of paper because you're going to be erasing a lot. Everyone knows experience points is, if you've played any kind of RPG or MMORPG, it's just how many experience points you have to get to progress to the next level. By killing monsters, completing quests. I give roleplay bonuses depending on how well you play your character. Really big fan of immersion. Next will be your gear. So armor type, AC bonus, max dex, check penalty, spell failure, speed, weight, special properties. It's basically the stats for your equipment on these blanks.
Your defensive equipment.
Exactly. So armor, shield, protective item would be like a magical ring that casts a ward around you. Other possessions. Your adventure equipment. Food, water skin, backpack, torches, whatnot. Will all go in there. Ladder.
10-foot pole.
10-foot pole. Bag of holding, if you're lucky enough to find one. Your loads, your light, medium, heavy loads. Load is basically how much your character feels like is light, medium, or heavy loads. So an orc barbarian with a high strength, his heavy load would be a lot higher than the heavy load of a halfling. Same with if you want to lift this heavy load over your head, like you want to throw your backpack at someone. There's 3 more blanks for those as well. Lift over your head is basically your max load. Lift off the ground is 2 plus your max load. And let's say I want to push and drag Fundy here out of the line of fire because we're under a hail of arrows.
Thanks, pal.
I wouldn't do that for you.
Go to hell, pal.
Already there. Money. So increments of 10 goes copper pieces, silver pieces, gold pieces, platinum pieces. So the way Fundy and I do it, 10 copper pieces make 1 silver piece, 10 silver pieces make 1 gold piece, and 10 gold pieces makes 1 platinum piece. Some DMs do away with coppers because there's a lot of logistics and paperwork and erasing, and I personally use all 3 of them to a lesser extent. But that's how money would work. Feats are kind of like perks in your typical RPG video game. They help individualize your character. It's what sets Fighter A for Fighter B. Let's say Fighter A has, greater cleave. That would be his specialty. Fighter B has rapid shot with a bow and arrow. That's his specialty. Exactly. And so basically feats help individualize your character with certain abilities. Special abilities is class and race dependent. So like an elf has a natural low light vision. That would be his special ability. Rangers have favored enemy, which gives them a bonus against a certain type of enemy. So again, this helps make your character a little bit more unique and sets them aside from your run-of-the-mill character archetype. And all this can be found in the player's handbook as well. Underneath that is languages, and languages is more for just role-playing. Let's say you're an elf, you know Common, which is English, and Elvish. You can read Elven.
Based upon your intelligence. You
Right.
can learn more languages based upon your intelligence modifier.
And spells, magic. There's a very, very, very long list of spells located in the player's handbook.
We're not going to cover them today.
Nope.
Not going to do it.
Not at all.
Can't make me.
Spell saves, arcane failure, all of that is covered in that whole section of spells in the player's handbook. To cover that now would extend this video for now 30 minutes.
Read the book.
Right. With that being said, that's what is the general makeup of a character sheet, which would create your character. So, appreciate y'all sticking around watching it through the end.
All this can be found in the book. So we definitely recommend getting yourself a copy. And if you can buy a copy at a store, please do. Not only is it easier, but you're supporting the hobby. You're supporting sometimes local businesses. And it's just easier. If you can't, you can download a copy of the book pretty much online anywhere.
Right. If you liked and enjoyed what we had to say, like and subscribe our video if you're on YouTube. Also, please check out our Facebook group, D20 and Friends. We're trying to grow this community. I'm trying to have 100 group members by December, so we're getting pretty close to that. Last count was 71 members. So if you have friends that are interested in our videos and role-playing in general, and you're already part of the Facebook group, feel free to add your friends to it. That being said, stay nerdy, guys. And I'm Austin.
And I'm Fundy.
And this was
the Dyson Quill. Bye-bye.
Don't stop